Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. This competitor currently lives in LA, but was born and raised in San Diego. She started her journey in August of 2020 and received her pro card less than 1 year later, actually in June of 2021. And she won first place and the overall at her first 3 shows, earned 6 at her first national show, USA's in 2020, then went on to win first place at every show after that, including NPC Junior Nationals, where she eventually turned pro. And she just made her pro debut, which was so amazing to see. This was at Patriots Muscle Contest, and it was just an awesome show, and she got 3rd place there. So really excited to be talking to her finally. Welcome to the show, Ariel Barley. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so happy you're here. I feel like we've connected on Instagram for a while, but we finally got to meet at USA's, and now I'm happy to have you on the show. And I always like to start the shows off by asking if there's something you do or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
I practice posing a lot. I connect with a lot of different competitors. I try to be like in a good mood, right? I try to just talk to people, help people, take a lot of pictures, just get really excited. And then right when I'm like at the steps, I just zone in and focus and be like, hey, the work's done. It's time to go have fun. Leave everything there and, do what you do. So.
Yes. Did you notice a different vibe at all backstage at your pro show compared to amateur shows?
You know what? Yes and no. I think just over time I started, once you do multiple shows, you kind of start getting used to the routine. But I will say it was a lot of everyone was just so happy, so excited. And there was also a lot of pro debuts though that day.
Yes.
But everyone was super helpful, glazing each other, fixing each other's suits. Everyone got along. So it was really just like a team environment, even though we were a lot of us were on separate teams. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. I really I remember the first time Muscle Contest posted a photo of you. I was watching as usual, and I was seeing these shows and I saw Class D. Pretty sure it was Class B.
D actually.
Yeah, D. I probably sound like it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I sound sick. But I was showed my boyfriend. I was like, what the heck? This girl looks like a freaking pro. And seriously, and now you are a pro, which is fantastic. And you had expressed after winning your overall that you wanted to become a pro. So how does it feel now to be there? Is it all that you expected?
Yeah. It's still, it literally just happened 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's still super fresh. I don't know, I haven't noticed. I think because also I've done a lot of shows before I did junior Nats. I did 2 or 3 shows, and so I just feel like it's just, I don't know, it's kind of the same, just with people that have been on the Olympia stages and who've won these huge pro shows, and it's really exciting to be able to stand next to them on stage. But it definitely is a lot of fun, and it's obviously on the pro level it's very competitive, so you learn a lot. And even when I was in the back just on Saturday, you just it's similar to when I met you at USA's, but just more mature.
Yeah. For sure. And I've heard different things from people about how it is back there, and I think it's just special that you're able to continue your competition journey and not feel too intimidated by that to some degree, and instead just embrace it and go out there, and you did your best. Now, did you have any expectations going into your pro debut, or were you surprised that you placed as well as you did?
I mean, I wanted to be in top 5.
Mhm.
I did, every show I do, I have expectations. And, that's just me being super transparent. I know a lot of people are like, I'm going into the show with 0 expectations. I always, I do. I'm just very competitive. And, obviously if my expectations aren't met, I'm not, it just is what it is. But it helps me with my confidence saying, hey, like, if I can get top 5, top 10 or whatever, like, that's great. As far as like where I fall on the 8th, 3rd, 2nd, whatever, I'm fine. But I always go in with expectations, and I have goals that I set for myself before the show. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's good to have those expectations and set goals without necessarily letting them dictate everything you feel about yourself.
Because too, it's like with this sport, I think for all of us who are in it, it's subjective, right? So
Yeah.
you can't take everything to heart, and it's easier said than done. It really is, right? Like so you can't control how people look, but you just can't control that. So you just gotta have fun. And kind of touching back on what you were saying, like in the when in the behind the stage in the back,
Mhm.
I don't know, I get along with almost everyone. Like I don't know, maybe that's why, like, I don't know what other like opinions you've heard about like pro debuts and stuff like that, or people in the back, like, I don't know, I get along with everyone. I'm just like, hey girl, what's up?
Yeah. That's what
You
I've
know?
heard. I've heard it's very friendly.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's amazing. And you obviously are someone who did compete a lot and you did really well at the shows you did. And when you started your journey, and you recently posted about this, but it was because people kept saying that you look like a competitor. Are you a competitor? So when did you decide, like, maybe I should just step on stage?
yeah, I come from an athletic background, and so as I got older, I wasn't really involved in any extracurricular activity. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to the gym, and like at the time, I was like, I just want really like big glutes, and like I want really big legs. Like before I knew what wellness was, right? Like I was like, I
Yeah.
just want curves, like because I've just always been very petite. So I just went to the gym and I was lifting, and at that time, my work schedule was kind of chaotic. So I would just go super early, and I still go super early. 8 years later, I'm still waking up like when it's dark. And so people at the gym, they're like, I see you every day, like, what are you doing? Because most people, as a competitor, we're constantly at the gym, constantly working. And I was like, I'm just here like lifting. I like it. It's fun. And so they would always ask. And I'm like, after like the 3rd person, I was like, what is competing? So I looked it up and I was like, hey, I'm gonna give that a try. And I just kind of jumped into an 8-week prep, and I was like, we'll see how it goes. And then yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how did you land on NPC and figuring out about the IFBB? Like, because I know if you search competing, you're going to get a lot of different
Yeah.
results.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the first because it's so big,
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of the pictures of like the competitors and stuff, they were all connected to the website. And then I was like, okay, where are the local shows? And so that's how I ended up doing the one. Obviously, it was COVID last year. It usually would be in LA, I think, or something like that. But it ended up being in Las Vegas. So I researched it, I think in June, or I don't even remember. It wasn't enough time to do a full prep, basically, but I did anyway. So I just winged it. It's kind of, I just kind of roll with the punches. I'm like, whatever. What's the worst that can happen?
Did you prep yourself for that show?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. What did you do?
I guessed, researched, and I researched. Yeah. And my problem actually was I wasn't eating enough. Like I thought I just wasn't, I didn't realize how much food my body takes to look the way it does. And then like, thank God I met Kim like 2 or 3 weeks later. And he was like asking me like, so how many calories are you taking? And I was like, I don't know. Like I didn't know anything. How much play? I don't know. Like I just didn't know anything. So thank God I met someone.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how did starting to work with a coach transform how you maybe looked at prepping and competing altogether?
Wow, it is very very tedious. When I first started, I was like, wow, like this is really like intricate, like food scale, weighing stuff, like everything. It was exciting though. I'm a Virgo, so like I like organization.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can do this routine. I can mill one, mill two. Like I was all for it. I was all for it. But it definitely helped. And I felt like relieved because I didn't have to worry about like my food. Like it was already done. Like just
Yes.
this. And like I just have to go, you know, do training. Like when you're doing it all yourself, it becomes stressful. And then like you don't have like another pair of eyes. So you don't know like if you're looking the way you're supposed to, you know. So it was great. Like best thing ever.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, obviously, you've now been working with him for a while. Do you feel like this is your coach? Have you, and you don't have to answer this question. I feel like this just came randomly, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do you feel like, okay, yeah, I could see myself with Kim for a long time, or are you kind of like, oh, whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
That's
I've
awesome.
learned so much in such a short amount of time. You know, he's a great mentor, even just like not even with competing, you know, just overall. So yeah, I mean, definitely long term for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so nice. Every time I see him at shows, he's like waving at everybody,
He's
and I'm like, you're
silly.
so sweet.
So silly. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think it's great, that you came into this sport, you went for it on your own. You determined that, okay, this is something I can do, I want to do.
Mhm.
Now, what do you want to accomplish in the pro league?
Let's go to the Olympia. I'm ready.
Yes. There's literally nothing holding you back from doing that.
Yeah. So, you know, just, I mean, I feel like that's, you know, everyone's goal, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
you know, always improving, learning, doing these pro shows. I mean, um, doing what you need to do to get there, and just enjoying the process along the way, all the good things, the not so great things, the challenging things. So yeah, I mean, I wish I had, even though I'm a Virgo, like I like organization and planning, but also a part of me is like, I'll figure it out later. Like, I don't know. Like, let's just do it. And like, I don't know, you know, so roll with the punches.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's that go with the flow version of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, because I think of it like, I think it depends on what it is. Like I feel like with competing, because it's fun. Like I find it fun. And although yes, I take it seriously, you know, we all work very hard. I mean, I guess my mentality is like, hey, like again, what's the worst that can happen? So it's just very, like very aloof about it. I'm just like, I love it. It's great. I've met so many people, built so many relationships. I've grown personally from it. It's really just a great, I tell everyone, I was like, everyone should compete, even though it's clearly not for everyone.
Yeah. And when people ask me if they should compete, I'm like, go for it,
Yeah.
and then they never do. Which is fine, but it's just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a dig, it's just the fact that you got to be prepared for what,
Totally. It's yeah.
it's okay if it's not for you, and it's okay if it is. Like,
Mhm.
just be prepared for what it
Oh,
brings.
oh yeah.
What were some of those challenges, or what are some of those challenges that you have faced that you think are important to be prepared for?
Well, you know, I think mental is a huge thing. I feel like a lot of us that are in this, you know, industry are so concerned on the physical part. And obviously that's a huge part of it, a huge component. But you know, what is that? I'm like so bad at quotes. What is it like? What you're? It's a mental thing. I can't think of the quote. I'm not going to butcher it, but
Yeah.
your mind is like not where it needs to be. Your body's just not going to work itself out. So I would say like initially when I first started, I was like, okay, like I really need to get like my mental state like situated. And what I mean by that is just like the process, like when you're tired, when you're hungry, or like, you know, if you don't place as well, or, you know, just being able to take constructive criticism and not being sensitive about it and stuff like that. So having like just your mental space like intact, I feel like it's kind of left behind, or like, you know, believing in yourself. A lot of people let their mind kind of get the best of them, and then, you know, they have a negative mentality, they get on stage and it shows, right? So
Yes.
and that's just internal stuff that's, you know, I think there's different variables, right? You know,
Mhm.
but um I say mentally, like initially, not so much anymore, but when I first started, yeah.
Yeah, and the mental thing applies for confidence, food,
Mhm.
body. This is something I've appreciated about you, that you do talk about these things and you share these things. And one time you were mentioning, and this was in a little bit of a improvement season that you were in, and you hadn't
Mhm.
had like a solid lift in a while. You weren't worried about keeping a particular shape after USA's.
Mhm.
What was your
Mhm.
intention or mindset during that time?
Well, because all a part of the process. Like last year, I was super, like I was just too small. Like at USA's, I was really small, and that's why I didn't work itself out with my pro card. So I had to, I had to eat. I have to put on size. I have to, be uncomfortable, and to get the results and come in fuller. Which, I mean, the eating part is never a problem. I mean, let's be honest. But and it just seeing a lot of people in our industry who are successful, that been to the Arnold's and Olympia, like looking at their process and be like, hey, that's just what that's what you have to do. And then like as time went on, I was like, I feel kind of good. Like I like this. Like I like to feel a little fuller and a little curvier.
Yeah.
So I was like, it kind of boosted my confidence a little bit. But I feel like too, when you're in competing, like get a little bit of body fat, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, when in reality we still are very in shape.
Yeah.
But you get so dialed in and so used to seeing yourself at a state where most people in the world don't get physically. And we don't realize how extreme that is. And then so you put on the body fat, it's like, oh my God, like, but it's fine. And so I got used to it and I embrace it and I love it. And I'm ready. I'm ready for that part two.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like you got to kind of accept that. And also, I was just talking to someone the other day and we were talking about how everyone's body can look different in the improvement season, just like it can look different on stage. Like you're going to store fat in different areas. Maybe
Mhm.
you store more fat than somebody else. And you had made a video encouraging women to speak positively about themselves and their body
Yeah.
when gaining that body fat and not call themselves fluffy or being negative and all this. And I thought it was so amazing. So why do you think it's important for women and competitors, of course, to not hide during their improvement season?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's like, I don't know, it's normal. I don't know. Like, again, like we have to remove ourselves from competing. Like if you I look at my physique before I started competing, and it was fine. Like there's nothing wrong with like not having like a six pack year round. Like I don't know. I just feel like it's normal to look like that. There's nothing wrong with it. Everyone's body's different. It's a part of the process. And it was at a time where like all the national shows, because of COVID, they were toward the end of the year, where everyone on social media was like, I'm fat, I'm this. And I was like, oh my God, like you guys are not, like stop. It's like all in our brains sometimes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that because it hurts my heart that, women think that way. And in reality, they look great. They really do. Um, so
Yeah. No, I love that you share that message because there's probably people who look at you and think, oh, she's always, perfect looking or got it together. And it's
uh,
nice to hear you say like, hey, it's
yeah,
not always like this.
yeah. Yeah, good days, bad days, just like, I mean, I feel like too, like that's why I like this sport so much, is a lot of the things that you learn in the sport apply to everyday life. You have good days, you have bad days, you feel a certain type of way mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. And, he's, again, I think it goes back to just having a strong mental state, strong mind. Because once that is intact, everything else tends to work itself out, even when things aren't the best. You just gotta, be prepared mentally. So
Absolutely. What do you do for your mental state every day?
I have talking about organization and routine, Virgo stuff. I literally like have a routine. I'm like from 8 to 8:30. That's what I'm gonna do. It's like kind of weird, but I meditate a lot. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of like positive affirmations. I don't do journaling too much. but I definitely meditate, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, in the morning and in the evening, it's like a staple in the positive affirmations for sure.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, more I'm spiritual. Yeah, definitely spiritual. Mm-hmm.
Do you find that process of meditation helps you day to day to recenter yourself when you're maybe feeling flustered?
Well, I'm a super anxious person. I'm like very anxious. So it helps kind of calm me down, relax me, and kind of, yeah, just center myself. I also read a lot, even though the book could be about, I don't know, astronauts or something, I don't know. But it's just the fact of like the process of
Yeah.
like, keeping your mind busy on something else, for me at least. So I do read a lot, spend my time like doing that, um, which helps. And then of course the gym, that also is an
Yes,
out. So
definitely. How do you keep your focus in the gym? Like, how do you know you're getting an intentful workout? Like, you're really getting what you need from it?
um well, usually I don't know, I just put on, I don't know, I have like random playlists. Usually it's definitely upbeat. I don't know how people listen to like slow music, R&B. I follow quite a bit of people who are like, yeah, listening to like R&B. I'm like, what? How? But up tempo music, and I just follow my routine. I mean, there's some days where I'm more tired than others, but you still just gotta grind, put your head down, and do the work. Um, so like for example, peak week is usually more of a mellow week. So this week has kind of been like quiet in the gym. But yeah, I guess just basing it off of just my mental state again. Like I'm huge on like brain, really.
Yeah.
That's gotten me like pretty far just personally too. I don't know if do you read a lot?
No, not well. I do for school, but not usually for leisure.
Okay, I feel like no one reads in 2021, so whatever. I'm
No,
like the
I
only one
think
on
it's
earth.
great. Like, I'll read a book that someone gives me because I think it's awesome, and then after that, I'm like, I need to pick another book for myself. And then well, when you're reading like research papers over and over and over again, it's just like
Oh
I don't want to. But
well,
anyway,
no, I understand that. That makes sense. I always recommend, I'm not super into um, self-help books too much. But The Power of Now is a really good book. It's a little deep, but I tell everyone that. Like people that come to me like they're going through something, and I'm like, I promise you, like if you read The Power of Now, you may have to read one page like 6 times because it's so deep. Like it's very, very deep. It is hard to grasp. I'm not super witty, so it takes me a while. But like I still, even that book is so old, and I still sometimes pull it out when I feel like I'm in a funk, and like it helps mentally. So I love that book.
what other ways have you found just prioritizing your mental state has influenced you in life? Let's separate from competing for a second, just like outside of competing. What other influence has it had?
Meaning like what, like reading?
Yeah, reading and quieting your mind and meditation. Like, how do you see that influencing like maybe work or relationships or just day-to-day life?
Well, I mean, again, like you have to like figure, I mean, everyone's different, right? Maybe people are like, some of my friends like, I can't meditate, or that's not something I do. Like you just have to find something that works for you. But that helps me like with work, relationships, just always like, I guess it helps, like I have to take a step back if a situation's kind of sticky or if I'm feeling some type of way. It helps me like reevaluate and not like jump to conclusions,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Like it's like take a deep breath, like let's see what's really going on, because we get so caught up like in just anything. We're emotional, we're human. So it just helps me like take things a little slower and not just like immediately like start reacting to whatever the situation is, whether it's good or not so great. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. I
I
think
just wasn't sure. I was like, am I making any sense?
you're making, yeah, you're making total sense. I understand completely. I think it's great that you're able to take a step back in those situations and not fall into, honestly, things that are usually driven by anxiety or cognitive distortions.
Yes.
As soon as we fall into those traps, we're no longer letting life unfold how it really needs to and is meant to for us. We're really more so trying to control every aspect. And I'm
Mm,
guilty of this too, especially a lot of competitors are probably more type A anyway, like you were saying, like being organized. But you want to know what's next all the time and you want to make sure you have some sort of grasp. But there's also value in just trusting that it'll unfold as it needs to, as long as you're
mhm,
doing what needs to be done. And
mhm.
that goes for relationships or situations too, where things do get sticky and you're like, okay, let's not jump to a conclusion that's driven by some sort of belief system that I might have not addressed yet. Let's
Exactly.
just feel this out and then address it more appropriately.
Yeah, control what you can control. And I still have my moments where I'm like, I need to calm down because I need to let it get the best of me, when in reality, like, I'm preaching, but I'm not, keeping my word too on my end. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, no one's perfect, but the more you try to, stay consistent and realize that, the less you'll be anxious, the less, you'll be a lot more calm, your headspace will be good, and life will just be overall like just better general. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a benefit to being someone with, and this might sound kind of crazy, but I think there's benefit to being someone who has or has struggled with anxiety. And I say this in maybe to take this with a grain of salt because there's different levels of anxiety, but I think part of being anxious means there's a high emphasis on what's next. And I like to reframe things in that way. And you have been someone who's express this high competitive spirit, like you really want to compete and do well, and you have these expectations and they don't define you, but you set these goals. So how does that competitive spirit drive you as a competitor?
in meaning like,
Yeah, like what is it that makes you competitive and how does it then influence how you're showing up, let's say in the
yeah,
gym or in general?
well, I think I'm like, if you're gonna do something, you might as well just do it right. Right. Like me, like if I'm gonna spend all of these weeks dieting and training, and I love it, right? It's great. It's challenging, which is why I like it. But I'm gonna put all I can into it, because if you're gonna like, just half it, what's the point, And so that's what kind of keeps me going. And I just, you can't win them all, right? You can't win them all, but you can try, you
Mm.
know, and you can just be the best, just like you said, the work is done, you're doing the work, and then the rest is kind of just out of your hands. Um, but the fact that I have such a great support system personally, Kim, Body by O, like just other competitors and stuff like that, that also, you know keeps me going. And then the fact too, like, I didn't realize, like, it's insane how I just started this for fun, which it is still fun, but like I wasn't really thinking anything of it. And I just get messages, you know, how I'm inspiring people, and it's awesome. Like that also is a huge part of what keeps me going too. So that's huge for me.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think there's like that's having that support goes a long way and it's such a gift and it's really empowering and sometimes it can also feel like pressure.
I
Did
was just
you,
gonna say that.
like have you ever felt that way?
Oh boy, yes, I have. That definitely. Yeah, the people's expectations. Yeah, it's well, my family and friends, I mean, people that love you and support you are gonna love you and support you regardless. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what you do, what you place, like, Um, but because of just how I'm wired, and I, try to be a perfectionist. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's pressure, and but I am a firm believer that pressure is good. Now, I think it depends, again, kind of going back on like where you're at mentally, because pressure can really ruin someone and just like take the fun out of everything. But for me, I thrive with pressure. I really do. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps things exciting. I may get a little stressed here and there, but I can handle the pressure. And you know, I think too, Kim, I mean, I'm not going to speak for him, but it seems like he realizes that it's kind of like an unspoken thing, because he'll kind of like, when I did Patriots, I was like, oh my God, someone sent help. I'm literally going against like, you know, I was like, oh my God. But I was like, let's do it. I'm going to do it. I'm committed. It doesn't matter. Like, what's the worst that can happen? So pressure is good, and it stresses me out a little bit, but it keeps me focused. And you know, my background, like, you know, my dad, he used to be in the Marines and military, law enforcement. You know, my mom, she's from the South. So, you know, I don't know if Southern culture with children, like, you know, you got to behave. So I come from a really supportive family, but I also grew up very disciplined. So it just kind of, I think, is just a part of me, really, with pressure and in performing in a good way. I think so. It built character.
Oh, absolutely. And I sometimes tell people, like, if you don't have a comfort in pressure or comfort in stress, sometimes it's good to put that stress and pressure on yourself and develop some sort of resiliency and expose yourself to situations where you're uncomfortable, because then in a situation like going up against top Olympians or going up against up and coming, you know, really killer pros, you're not going to be as, you know, flustered by it. And like you said, you were able to rise to the occasion rather than backing down, being like, no, this isn't the show for me.
Yes. And that, yeah, I mean, it's huge, because it's like, if you really, and this applies to anything, not even competing, like if you want to be successful at something, you're going to be put in situations where you're going to be like, crap, was not expecting this. Like, and so you just have to always, you know, be prepared, you know, and I always look at things like, I know I've been saying it, like it's not like a broken record, but like, what's the worst that can happen? How I see things, competing or not, is like, am I going to, like, are people still gonna love me? Yeah. I'm still gonna have a support system. Like, am I gonna lose fingers? No. Like, you know, like, what's the worst that can happen? I don't get the placing I want. Okay. Like, you know, right? So it's like, you just have to look at it. Depends on how you look at it, right? Like, what's really on the line. So
Absolutely. While still, like you said earlier, having the expectation and goals in place for you. And before you went pro, you had actually made a video to yourself saying you're not going home without your pro card. So how did you know that would be your time? And how did making that video maybe apply some of that necessary emphasis on going and getting it?
you know, last year at USA, everything happens for a reason, right? That USA is, and everything is supposed to happen the way it happened. But I was like, I literally, I have to, like, if I don't get I'm gonna stay in Tennessee. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. Like, I have to get it. I said, this is it. And just taking the feedback from the two shows I did prior to it, applying that. And I think too, I was talking to Kim about this, like, just like, again, going back to mental state, I think last year was such a flash. It happened so quickly and so fast that I don't think I was mentally ready. Like, my body was partially there, but my mind, I was like, what is going on? And so I think mentally, this year I was a lot stronger competing wise. And I was more confident, and, you know, I had a couple shows under my belt, was able to get feedback more than once. So I just felt it. Like, I felt it, and I made sure my mind was intact. And you have to be careful with the brain, because it's pretty powerful. So what you tell yourself is definitely going to happen.
Yes. And not lying to yourself, you know, like, anyone can say one thing, but you'll know what's actually true.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing with, you know, I'm a firm believer, obviously, with that video, like manifesting and stuff like that. But I tell people, I'm like, it's just like you said, you can say one thing, but if you don't do the work that's required and you don't truly believe it, nothing's gonna happen. So it's like, you can do the act, but I mean, unfortunately, I don't think it is gonna happen if you're not applying the other things that go along with it, you know? So that's super true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're reemphasizing this point over and over again, because it really is key. And our minds are so powerful. And earlier you said you have to be also ready to take constructive criticism. So what was the feedback you had been and maybe are working on now?
Yeah. Well, I'm also like a really deep thinker. Like I'm a nerd. So, obviously on like social media, people don't really see that part, but like I'm like really into like psychology, sociology. Like I study a lot of this. Like I'm like really into it.
I love it.
So I kind of get like lost in my brain. Sometimes I have to like, who am I talking to? We're gonna be like, what is she talking about? But yeah, the like feedback, constructive criticism, like again, like just being raised, like I was always open to feedback. My parents always had something to say. They just did, and respectfully, right? Like I come from a wonderful family. But also being an athlete my whole life, like you have coaches and mentors, and you got to be able to take feedback or else you're not going to be able to grow. Even professionally, like I've been in sales and talent acquisition, so it's a fancy word for recruiting. So I've been in like high pressure roles professionally, where you're working with very high-end individuals who don't bite their tongue. So I just basically have thick skin. So when I get feedback from the judges, which are obviously super nice here, you have to listen to it. Feedback like last year, for example, I came in a little bit too conditioned. I need more upper body, more size. So I'm like, okay, cool. Off season, that's kind of going back to how, putting on that extra weight, body fat. Where else is it going to come from? Like you can't, in a calorie deficit, you're not going to get anywhere. So I was like, okay, I got to put on some size. Let's do it. Let's eat. Let's grow, lift the weights. This year's feedback, I came back how they wanted. Each show I just had to get more tighter physically, so the cow, I did NorCal. Each show I just got more leaner. And then obviously at the pro level, the expectations kind of, slightly shift. But taking the feedback, me and Kim, we execute. Yeah, we take the feedback, we put it to work, and then we go do the show and have some fun. So that was basically the feedback for the most part. And then of course posing, everyone, we all can benefit from that. But so yeah, just listening to the feedback, doing what is asked, and then you do what's asked, and the judges, they tend to reward people who take the feedback and constructive criticism. It's only to help you, right?
Yes, exactly. And you being an athlete before this could see and know mentally that a coach will only give the girls that they know can be better feedback. Like, I don't know if that's true for you, but like looking back on a lot of my athletic sports before this, it was like the coach was giving more feedback to a lot of the star players. And anytime, like, I wanted feedback, and anytime I got it, I remember my mom one time said to me, she was like, you're not getting feedback because you're bad, you're getting feedback because your coach sees you can be better. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I never really saw it that way, but the same thing is true for judges and coaches here.
Yep, definitely. And that it's huge. And I think too, it's, you gotta take, just the emotion, right? Control them, and, take the feedback again, like, and just do what you have to do. That's why it's there. I mean, it's also optional, right? If you don't want feedback, hey, good luck, right? Like that's it's definitely optional, but you should get it. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's too funny. And I think, by the way, like, I think it's great that you have a passion for psychology, sociology, and the spirituality side of things. Like, this is, I could talk about it all day. I study it myself, and I think it's great when other people are so immersed in it. And I think the deep conversations and deep thought, like, if you could take something that's very surface level, such as bodybuilding, and realize that it's actually so much deeper than that, you're going to be more successful long term because you've integrated it in a different way.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it really has, and I think a lot of people say, this about competing, but it changes lives, which is why I'm such an advocate for everyone to do it, knowing that not everyone's going to do it, or should do it.
Yeah.
But it really challenges you mentally and physically. And for me, more so mentally than physically, because it's a lot of you know how it goes, lots of discipline
Yeah.
that we, you know, that you have to have to be successful in the sport. But yeah, I love just psychology and all that. It's just so interesting to me. So yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's cool that we have the resources to study ourselves, yet we still don't have all the answers.
True. And I really, it's such a huge part of just life though. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that. Like it's like the mind and psychology, it applies to every single thing, like why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're the way you are. Like, oh my God, there's just so much.
Yeah, and even to that point, if you're not conscious of where your behaviors are coming from,
Yeah.
then you kind of are accepting the fact that your behaviors are not your own, or
Yeah.
or not your choices. It's
Uh-huh.
almost robotic, I think, when you step back, even if it could be painful to see what's driving your behaviors and painful to understand your emotions, it's opens up the opportunity to see that the choice really is yours every day, and it doesn't have to be up to patterns of your life or of your genetics or of things that you've been taught and society does or people. It doesn't have to be that way. You really can learn from your behaviors and make something better.
Man, that is the truth. Yes. Yes. And it just, again, it takes, it takes work. It takes work for someone to realize that, because I've had my share of, that mental state of, I guess the blame game, I guess you could say, and really having to get out of it and stop playing the victim and stuff like that. It's challenging, but if you really want to do it, just like anything, you'll do it, right? So
Yes.
kind of no excuses. I'm kind of like a hard ass a little bit.
I love that. I'm so sick and tired of victims. This victimhood mentality everywhere now. It's like, what the hell? Step up to the plate and make something for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I think that helps me too with competing, just having the grit. It just the suck doesn't last too long. You're fine. Everything is a choice and it's an option, and you can choose what you want to do. A lot of things in life, majority of things in life are actually the choice. So, yeah.
So true. Oh, I love this. I know we could talk. I feel like we could talk forever. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like, I'm really being sensitive to that, but I can't end this episode. And we might even, in the future, if you want to come back on, we can always talk more, maybe do like follow-up episode, especially with, I think that'd be good. I'll talk to you more about that after. But if you could share maybe your best advice for girls who are on their road to pro, and then also your best advice for girls who have never competed before but are thinking about it.
If you are if you're working towards your pro card, definitely don't lose sight of the goal. I feel like after people don't get their way, and I can definitely use myself as an example with USA's, I was kind of bitter. I'm not gonna lie, I was really bitter about it. You gotta accept the emotions, accept how you feel, don't ignore it, but always keep the end goal in mind and make sure that you're not halving anything. So if they say you need more upper body, you feel some type of way, deal with it, and then get to work, and then just keep at it, because everything, we try to take shortcuts and stuff, and everything's already fake. So there's no point of trying to do that because it's already set, right? So whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen, but just keep doing what you're doing and just don't just be relentless. I get inspired by, a lot of different competitors who are just literally relentless, show after show, they're getting that pro card. They're getting it. They're taking the feedback, they're doing what they have to do. Sometimes it's easier for other people to get their pro card or to be successful. Some people, in the sport, have to work a little harder. It just is what it is, right? What is that saying? It's not fair. It just, but don't just keep at it. And just, again, make sure your mental space is there. I need to come up with a quote or something about brain power, but the mental space will get you very far in the sport. So just, be relentless.
Awesome. I love that. And I appreciate everything that you've shared on this podcast, of course, and just being so open about your journey as well. And I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and I know other people will have enjoyed this conversation too. And you guys listening, if there's something you want us to like follow up on or anything like that, like let us know. Of course, tag us with your main takeaways and things you enjoyed. So Ariel, can you let everybody know how they can connect with you?
Yes, you guys are more than welcome to slide my DMs. Ariel.Barley on Instagram. I think my email might be in my bio or connected to my Instagram, but definitely, yeah, feel free to reach out. I have conversations in my direct messages like all the time. I love to meet people, talk to people. Like I am super friendly. So definitely give me a shout.
That's awesome. I'll put that in the show notes page. You guys, that's always at celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening to this right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section. You'll find everything's in alphabetical order there. So you'll see Ariel Barley, just click that. All the show notes, timestamps, so you can go back to certain things that she said, like the book she recommended earlier. And you'll be able to know exactly where to find all that. So again, thank you for coming on, and to everybody listening, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.